demonstrators across this country on at least 12 campuses. USC, University of Southern California, canceling its main graduation ceremony, citing security concerns. Joining us now is political analyst Calvin Dark. And Mr. Dark, thanks for being with us. One of the questions that seems to be emerging from this is that the students are angry, but a lot of students are questioning whether or not they know what they are angry about. How is it that college campuses can educate students while at the same time the administration's heads are being put on platters on Capitol Hill?
Hi, good to be with you here today. I think that what you bring up is a very important point, but we have to make a clear distinction. It is incumbent on all of us to educate ourselves and understand the history and the complicated dynamics as we take a position on this issue. However, the lack of that does not dampen or lessen someone's ability to protest it. You don't need a PhD in Middle Eastern studies to see humanitarian crisis and want to protest that it stops. And so I think that overall, we're seeing that the general feeling is an end to the conflict that's causing humanitarian crisis in Gaza, also release of the hostages, also to address the families and victims of the victims of October 7th. Now, when it gets down to the details, I think you can range anywhere from the impossible to the difficult, like issues around divestment, to the possible and doable things like, maybe changing the way they do partnerships with universities in the region, changing the focus of some of the programs that focus on, say, military issues. But once again, I think that is the job of the university to engage in those discussions, and just sending in the police and not listening to students or belittling what they're saying is not helping.
How do you separate, I guess, the politics from the protest? House Speaker Mike Johnson going to Columbia University, calling for the head of Columbia to be fired. How do you separate out the fact that the war on woke by Republicans has now been going on long before these anti-Israel protests have been taking place on college campuses?
Speaker Johnson and Republicans have illustrated just a failure to lead, but hold on, it's a bipartisan failure, so it's not just him. When Speaker Mike Johnson went to Columbia, one of the things that he did that was very disappointing was that he lumped in people who were being violent and intimidating, which they should be called out. That should not happen on campuses or anywhere else. But he lumped them in with people who have genuine beliefs that might not align with his on the U.S. position with Israel, the U.S. position in the region. And he would have had a lot more credibility if he had acknowledged that he's not talking about those people who protest that he doesn't agree with. That's why he got booed when he was speaking. But Biden also has a part to play in this because, frankly, one of the things that's happened is he has changed the way he speaks about this conflict to address a lot of the concerns from his constituencies, people who are young, but he hasn't changed his actions in a corresponding way. And let me tell you something, an unpopular policy combined with hypocrisy is a bad combination if you want to get reelected in November. So from that sense, both parties have had a bipartisan failure in leading on this issue.
He has walked that tightrope trying to be supportive of Israel while at the same time trying to support the people in Gaza and being hard on Israel with regards to getting aid shipments in and getting Benjamin Netanyahu to scale back military operations. Is the young audience that is upset, that is protesting on these college campuses, is that now gone from the Biden administration?
It's going to be very difficult. And, from election to election, foreign affairs rarely is a priority for many voters, definitely not a priority that could change the result of an election. But we know for sure about the results of this coming election is they're going to be close. And we also know that former President Trump's constituency isn't that diverse as far as ages, for example, but it is strong. They are going to come out and vote for him. Biden is having to pull together a coalition of people from the middle who are senior citizens to the youngest folks who are on the far left. And just a small percentage of those far left young people in his coalition, if they stay home, that can make the difference in swing states. That can make the difference in Biden winning or losing the election.
Mr. Dark, if you can, and it may be impossible. Explain the anti-Semitism. And as for years, many American Jews have been at odds, actually, with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and yet they now find themselves targets of the pro-Palestinian demonstrators.
I think this is where society, and by society, I mean me, you, and everybody listening, where we can play a role to have a sophisticated conversation about this. Simply because we need to learn the vocabulary and learn how to listen and speak on this issue in a way that makes the distinction between anti-Semitism and a difference in policy. And I think that on some people's cases, it's because they don't know that there's a line between being anti-Semitic and maybe being against the policy that the Israeli government has. But then I think there are also people who are intentionally avoiding making that distinction because it helps their political motives. So I think that a sophisticated conversation about what these positions means will help.
Calvin Dark, and my apologies for cutting you off. Thanks for being with us. One of the reasons that I cut you off is because of what is unfolding right now in Waco, Texas. We want to take you